Hi, everyone. Welcome to the MBV podcast. I'm Jeremy Gardner from mindbodyvortex.com. Today we have an exciting guest. Patrick Charron is the owner and developer of Flō Tribe, a unique training experience which utilizes the mind-body connection to achieve what is referred to as flow state. Patrick has a background in biology and has also been heavily involved in martial arts and MMA training, which led him deeper into the mind-body connection. And after a profound experience in Costa Rica, Patrick dove deep into research where he eventually fell across the term referred to as flow state. For the past few years, Patrick has been developing a formula where he has been able to help other people achieve flow state, incorporate flow into various aspects of their lives, and also Patrick believes that flow state can help us overcome many of the challenges that we have within ourselves and within our environment. Patrick calls this the warrior mindset, and incorporating flow into our lives is an exciting way to achieve this state of mind. So I look forward to this conversation. Let's get into the interview. So this idea of flow, it's a very exciting concept. It's something that we've all experienced in some way or another without being able to kind of put our finger on what it is. So how would you describe flow state? This is something that you've been working for the past 2 years.
I think there's many ways to describe it depending on who you are or what you're doing. And for me, flow state is really a state of, I like to use the word maximum performance, or maximum potential maybe is a better word. Potential is what you're capable of, right? So your maximum potential is you at your absolute best. What does that look like? Now, so flow state for me is that state of maximum potential. And the reason that you're in that state is because you're shutting down these parts of your brain that would usually prevent you from performing at your absolute best, such as the prefrontal cortex, right? So when you're thinking too much, you're slowing yourself down. Thinking requires energy. Thinking requires you to kind of slow down and think things through and make sense of things. But all that time, you could just be, releasing that and not paying attention to that and just performing based on your experience, based on the work that you've invested.
Yeah.
So that's what, for me, flow state is really a state of maximum potential.
That's amazing. So what drew you into this?
Okay, so 2008, I've started martial arts in 2001, so 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Got really, really into it and just became obsessed with it because it was something I could do by myself. I've always been kind of a bit of a loner, someone who really likes to do things on his own. And what was amazing with Thai boxing, or Muay Thai, which is the first martial art I did, was all I really needed was a punching bag. And I could do hours and hours and hours of practice. I could shadow box, I could, train, I could do all these things on my own. I didn't need someone else to do it. I became totally obsessed. Muay Thai is based out of Thailand and has a very strong influence from Buddhist culture. So there's a lot of ceremonial aspects to Muay Thai that are based in Buddhist culture. So I started reading a little bit about that, and that led me to meditation. Got into meditation probably around 2006. Read mostly, at the beginning I was really reading a lot about Zen Buddhism and the different aspects of that. And when you read about Zen Buddhism, they talk about this awakening moment that you'll have in meditation practice. And I never felt it. At least I didn't feel like I did. I felt like I was, doing something positive, and I felt like, all right, this is pretty cool, but I never had that holy shit moment, that wow moment that, these books were promising me, right? And then I went for a run. So I live in Montreal, and I was on Mount Royal, and I went for a run, and I always like to finish my runs with like a really steep kind of hill sprint just to get that really awesome rush at the end. And for whatever reason, it was like this, I think it was like September, it was like this perfect evening. The sun was just setting, the birds, the wind, everything was perfect. And I remember thinking, okay, why don't you meditate now? Like in this state, huffing and puffing, in the forest, let's see what happens. And so I sit down and I close my eyes and I start doing the exact same breathing that I usually do, but I could tell it was different. First of all, it was harder to breathe because I was like trying to recover from that run. But then over time, the breathing got deeper and deeper. And then it really was click. Mm-hmm. This click happened where suddenly my body was gone. I no longer was a physical being. I was just, I don't know what I was, but it felt like I was just energy. I couldn't feel my body anymore. I was aware, I knew where I was, but there was just no more physical self. Mm-hmm. And that was pretty intense. And then I remember opening my eyes and just kind of looking around and just feeling like, whoa, okay, this is what those books were talking about, right? And I consider that to be my first spiritual moment.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. Before then, I didn't really believe in anything. I didn't believe in any religions. I didn't believe in any higher power or higher being or any of that. And I didn't have an explanation for it. It's not like, oh, I see it now. You know, it's more like, okay, there's something going on here. Yeah. I get it. I get why people believe it now, right? So kind of dabbled with that for a while, but never really took it very seriously.
Did that draw you further back into meditation?
Yeah, absolutely. It showed me what was possible. I think once you see it, you're like, all right, I want that to happen again. And it doesn't happen every time, you know, and that's the thing about meditation is it's not a magic pill. Oh. Some days you'll have those amazing experiences and some days you won't. But it showed me what was the potential of it. Yeah. And so I studied a little bit of that and I dabbled with it myself, but I didn't really take it seriously until 2013. So in 2013, my wife had this crazy idea that we should go live in Costa Rica for a year. So she was accepted to do a master's program at the University for Peace. So the University for Peace is a school that's mandated by the United Nations. It sits on top of this hill surrounded by this beautiful tropical rainforest and jungle in Costa Rica. And she's like, so what do you think? I'm like, all right, let's do it. All right. So we packed up our family. We took the kid. We took the dog. And off we went. And so she was at school studying. My son was in a school studying. So my days were pretty free. And I spent most of my time in the jungle. I've always been someone who's been drawn to nature. Never really experienced it in that way, though, where we lived in the jungle. Yeah. Like we had a house and it was surrounded by the most amazing, just beautiful space where we had 3 acres of property. We had a waterfall on our property. We had, running trails and it was just incredible. For someone like me, it was paradise. And, I remember probably about 2 weeks after we moved into this house, I went for a run, and the runs were like these steep hills. So no matter where you were going, you were huffing and puffing afterwards. And then I dove in this waterfall, and then I went to sit under this 800-year-old tree, and I closed my eyes, and I was doing the same meditation practice that I've been doing for years. And much like that time in 2008, it happened again, where I got that really intense kind of rush, that click. But maybe 5 or 6 times stronger than I've ever felt. Yeah, absolutely. And
so what is the meditation? Just to you say you've been doing the same meditation practice for years. Can you just touch briefly on what that is?
Yeah, I think for me, it's just the way you breathe. So I use something called diaphragmatic breathing. Okay. So diaphragmatic breathing, meaning that you're trying to expand your stomach as you inhale in order to maximize the movement of your diaphragm. Okay. Right. So the diaphragm is this membrane that sits right below the lungs. And it helps with the breathing practice. And normally when we breathe very shallow. Most people breathe with these very shallow breaths. And by expanding your stomach and maximizing the movement of the diaphragm, you're actually helping your lungs to expand further, allowing more air to come in on each breath. I've also felt like it gives you more control of your breathing. The fact that you're aware of your diaphragm, the fact that you're aware of this movement, it gives you way more control over your breath. And so and especially after a run like that, it's hard. It's hard because you're trying to breathe in and out of your nose, first of all. And so you're like, oh my God, am I going to be able to do this? But you force yourself to do it.
And then it triggers that relaxation a little bit.
And the thing about the nose, which is really interesting, and this is something I talk about in my workshops and stuff, is that the nasal cavity is actually connected to the brain. So there's a connection between the nasal cavity and the limbic system of the brain. The limbic system being where emotions are mostly dealt with. Yeah. And so when you inhale and exhale through the brain, through the nose, you're actually triggering responses from your nervous system that you won't trigger if you're inhaling or exhaling through the mouth. So when we force people to breathe through the nose, that's why we do it. Especially when you exhale, it's been shown to activate your parasympathetic nervous system, which is your relaxation system, right? So you take these long, deep breaths through the nose, and when you exhale through the nose, you're helping to induce that relaxed state that you want to get from meditation. Wow. But when you put that with the high intensity training, you're not really relaxing in the sense of like, you know what I mean? It's more like you're relaxing your body, which is awakening this other part of your mind, which is triggering this other part of your mind. So you're creating the stress through the workout, but then you're using the breathing to take control of that stress and allow it to progress into something.
That's amazing.
Which we now know to be flow state, but I had no idea at the time.
So you're sitting in the jungle.
Yeah. Sitting in the jungle. So I open my eyes and And I knew, I felt the click. I knew that, you know, and I'd been there before. But when I opened my eyes and I'm looking around, first of all, there's that surreal kind of feeling when you live in a place like that. You're like, okay, I actually live here. This isn't my backyard at home. This isn't, you know what I mean? This is Costa Rica. I'm in the jungle. This is my life right now. Okay. And there's a bit of a surreal feeling you have to get over. And then I remember looking down and I remember touching the earth and feeling like my hand kind of just melted through it. Because it didn't feel like I was me, the person. I was just part of everything that was around me. And then the next thing I noticed was that I was surrounded by about 15 monkeys. And these monkeys were kind of local monkeys. They often came by the house to visit, but it was mostly to see if we would give them bananas or whatever. Yeah. Or they would steal the bananas off the side of the house, which was really cool.
Keep going.
And for whatever reason, I'm looking at these monkeys and I'm like, they weren't looking at me the same way as they normally would. I wasn't a human being anymore. It really was like, no, you're just one of us. And they're just sitting there super chill, looking at me, and I'm looking at them. And part of me's freaking out a little bit, but I just felt so peaceful and so connected to these dudes. I was just like, all right. Wow. And I hung out there for about an hour.
Oh, yeah.
Just sitting there with these monkeys because I felt so connected. Like I'm looking around in the trees and the jungle and everything. It was overwhelmingly amazing. It was just so peaceful and powerful at the same time, which is a strange kind of... It's really weird to feel peaceful and powerful at the same time. Yeah. Usually power is associated with this like stress and intensity, and peacefulness is kind of related to this relaxation. But to feel both simultaneously is just incredibly, incredibly amazing.
And that's when you started to kind of
there's
a little bit something going on here.
Absolutely. And what was most amazing wasn't just that moment. So that hour was amazing on its own, but it was the rest of my day after. So after a while, your consciousness kicks back in, right? But it was the fact that everything I did in that day, I was doing at my absolute best. I remember sitting down to write about my experience and thinking, whoa, this is some of the best writing I've ever done. I remember going to play soccer with my son, and I'm doing things with a soccer ball that I usually can't do.
Yeah.
Like I was doing everything at a higher level, and I knew that it was triggered from that experience that I had in the jungle.
Yeah.
And so over that year, I just kept doing that over and over and over again. And it wasn't always the same intensity. That first time is always like the most intense, but it happened to me on the beach. When I went for a run barefoot on the beach. And this one was really weird because I was running. You know when you're running on the beach and there's this part where the surf comes in and the waves are crashing, but there's like this part of the sand that has this little film of water on it. Like right before...
You step on it and the water kind of comes up.
Yeah, right? Yeah. And it's kind of like a mirror, right? Yeah. Because it's super, super shiny. So I was running, and when I looked down, I could see the reflection of the sky. So I could see the blue sky with the clouds. And for a minute, my perception got completely twisted around where it felt like I was running on clouds. And whatever reason, that triggered flow state.
Oh,
just
yeah.
As soon as I thought, oh, I'm running on clouds.
Just that thought.
Bam. I suddenly was running on clouds, and I just completely went into this whole other perception of reality. And I remember stopping and just kind of letting it sink in. And that was another one of those moments. And that wasn't even, that had nothing to do with meditation or anything else. It was just another way to
meditation is
flow.
like kind of could be the gateway, but it's
but it's not the only way. And that's the thing about flow state is there's many, many, many ways to trigger it. Musicians will trigger it when they're jamming together. An artist will trigger it when she's painting. And that's the thing. You'll trigger it playing a video game. You'll trigger it if you're reading this amazing book where suddenly you are the person in that book. Yeah. Right? That's flow state.
So what are these experiences? So what is it that they all have in common? One thing that's anonymous with all is the presence where time doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Everything kind of just disappears.
Yeah.
And what are some other common experiences? You said, you sat in the jungle for like an hour with these monkeys, and so what is it? What would you say it is that triggers this thing? Was it one specific thing?
That's the thing. And so after that year, and so the cool thing about the year was that at the end of the year, I was invited to. This was really cool. We'll get to your question. I just kind of want to set up where the research came from. Was that I was invited to teach. So the program my wife was in was called Peace peace, conflict, and media studies. Okay, so it was the relationship between the media and conflict. So how does the media, interpret what's going on in the world, and how is it presenting it to us, and the relationship between that and the world. And so part of what she was doing was, at the end of the program, they had to do a 1-week field training. So the field training was for conflict zone journalism. So imagine journalists that are going off into these like really crazy parts of the world. They're going to Syria. They're going to some unstable South American country. So they need training. You can't just go in there with your suitcases and, hey, I'm here. No, like there's some crazy shit going down, and you got to be ready for that. So they set up this 1-week field training course where it's a simulation. So they bring all of these students into the jungle, and they tell them you're in at the time they were in southern Mexico dealing with drug cartels.
Wow.
So and the students have no idea what's going to happen to them. And what they do is they hire all these local people as actors, and they really set it up for you to believe that you're in southern Mexico surrounded by these people, and there's all this crazy stuff going on. So the first night, they bust into this one space where they were all sleeping with ski masks and machine guns. And everybody on the floor and hands above your head, whatever. And then they grab a few of those people, bring them out in the jungle, make them dig their own grave. Like they make them do all this crazy stuff. So they had secretly approached me and asked if I could teach them a self-defense workshop as part of this field training. So that's where I think that was the first time I ever taught this concept of using your breath to take control of your stress, to take control of your emotions, in order to give you a better chance at performing at a higher level.
It just came to you because you've experienced it, and you kind of started to make the link of
I still didn't understand flow or any of that, but what I knew was that if I'm going to spend, let's say you approach me, you say, hey, I'm going to this crazy place next week. What can you teach me that I can use in case I need to, deal with a dangerous situation? Because that's what self-defense is, right? So martial arts takes years and years of practice. So there's no way that I'm going to be able to teach you these techniques and you're going to go off and be like, all right, I got it. Like there are certain techniques that are simple, and that if you practice them enough, you'll be able to, use them pretty quickly. But I also knew that it was way more about your ability to deal with stress than it would be about the ability to defend yourself against someone who's trying to attack you. So I figured, well, if I'm going to teach them something, I would much rather teach them about breathing and stress control and understanding how it all works, and then teach a little bit of martial arts at the end so that they do walk away with some skills.
Yeah, because we talked about that earlier. Those skills are nothing if you don't have access to that part of the brain,
100%,
right?
100%. And that's something I've seen a million times in the gyms, where you see these guys who have amazing skills, but mentally they fall apart under pressure. Yeah. Like they go into the ring and they just don't
Emotion
perform.
Comes in.
Yeah, and you see it in athletes all the time, where these amazing athletes who train super hard, and then competition day they fall apart.
Yeah, it's this big mystery. What happened? How did this?
Yeah. So that was my first time teaching it. And then that's when I knew that I had to come back here and I had to make sense of it all. I had to say, okay, what happened? What am I feeling? Why is it so powerful? And I knew that if I wanted to teach it, I couldn't talk about jungle spirits and connecting with this, spiritual force. Why? Because that's not the language most people speak. If I came back here, I had to be able to teach it from a scientific perspective. I had to be able to use words that people understood and that people connected with. Yeah. And that's when I busted out the books and I started reading about, the science of exercise, understanding the science of meditation, understanding the science of breathing, and then putting all of these different pieces together. So that was my first, and that's where flow state came from, where one day I discovered one book called The Rise of Superman. So shout out to that book for sure, written by Stephen Kotler, who, so I just fell on an interview with him actually, and he's starting to talk about these states, and I'm like, well, that's exactly how I feel. Oh, okay, flow state, I get it. And what he did is he studied extreme athletes. So he studied downhill skiers, he studied like freestyle snowboarders, guys who are jumping off cliffs, and like if they don't go into flow state, they're done. Why? Because it's so intense that they need ultra focus. They don't have that ultra focus, they're not going to make it. So that for him was the easiest way to study flow, because these are guys that are triggering it way faster than anyone else. And the more I read these books, the more I read especially that book, I totally knew that that's exactly what I had been tapping into. And I knew that, okay, I have a name for this now. Okay. Finally, I have a name for this amazing thing that I've been trying to make sense of.
Yeah.
So that's where I finally decided to, okay, build something based on flow state, because that's what you're tapping into.
So what else did you start learning about flow state? Were you able to put the pieces together on what was actually taking place in the physical body?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and again, I'm not an expert, because I have a tendency to learn enough to be able to use it. I think that, sometimes learning is great, but there's a lot of stuff you just don't really need to know.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to know every little detail about why things happen. I think once you have a very general idea and enough to talk about it, you're good. Move on. Go learn something else that can be useful. And I think the first thing for me was really the neurochemistry of it. Because when you talk about flow state, there's 4 main neurochemicals that seem to be responsible for it. The first one being dopamine. So dopamine is part of your addiction pathways, right? So when you do something you really, really like, your body releases dopamine, and that's what makes you want to do it again and again and again and again, because you want that dopamine release every time you do it. Right, but it's also what can get you addicted to bad things. Right? So
but it's something it's a useful thing that helps us, keeps us kind of
it keeps you
doing the dishes, cleaning
if you're doing something you like doing, then it keeps you doing that good thing.
Okay.
So someone who's addicted to exercise, well, that can be a good thing. But if you do too much, it can also be a bad thing. But if you're addicted to cocaine, well, maybe not so good, right? But it's the same pathways. Right. So dopamine, that was a big one. And I really got into that and trying to understand that, because the idea as a trainer or as someone who's trying to help someone use this program, well, I kind of want them to get addicted to it. I want them to get addicted to meditation and get addicted to exercise and get addicted to eating well. Right. Because you can use that addiction pathway in a positive way. It doesn't have to be a negative thing. We always think addiction is negative, but it doesn't have to be if you're doing things that are good for you. The second neurochemical was endorphins. So anybody who's ever done any sport, you hear about the endorphin high, the runner's high, right? So endorphins are part of your pain management system. So endorphin actually stands for endogenous morphine. Okay.
Yeah.
So endogenous morphine, endogenous meaning it's produced naturally from within. Exogenous would be I take morphine exogenously, meaning someone shoots it into me or I take a pill or whatever.
Crazy. I didn't know that. It's very interesting.
So endogenously means that your own body is producing it.
Wow.
So we're basically opium producing machines. We have the system to produce opium within ourselves.
That's where you get that numbness, like that euphoria where...
Yeah, there's a euphoric feeling associated to it. It's why you feel good after exercise. But, if you look at it from an evolutionary standpoint, why does it exist? It's to help us deal with pain. So as soon as your body is in pain, you'll start producing endorphins to help you deal with that pain. But exercise is a form of pain, right? It hurts. When you push hard enough, it hurts. So that was a big one. The third one that I found I never heard of before until I started doing research is called anandamides. So anandamides are a cannabinoid, right? So cannabis. So our own body produces a form of cannabinoid. And the cannabinoid is very closely related to the opioid. But it's shown to boost creativity and to create alternative thinking pathways. So why is it that when you're in this state, you suddenly get, if you're problem solving, for example, and you're stuck in this kind of loop of always thinking about the same things, and suddenly, whoa, this new idea comes on. And that's mostly related to that. So it's really a good creativity booster. It really helps you to think in different ways. And then the fourth one is serotonin. So serotonin is what they call the happiness molecule. Okay. So serotonin, if you look at people with depression, often it's because they don't have enough serotonin production. Okay. So by boosting serotonin levels, you're giving yourself that feel-good kind of thing you get after, for example, after a really good workout. There's moments when I apply this formula, I'm like, I could change the world. Like you feel super confident. Well, that's serotonin. Serotonin comes in at the tail end of flow state and is responsible for that I can do anything kind of feeling that you get. So it really boosts your confidence levels and your focus and all that. And then again, which one does what? At that point, who cares, right? As long as I'm doing it, as long as
things are starting to make sense as you're learning.
But learning it, and then I started thinking, it's funny, like I'm looking at this mixing board, right? So what if each one of these rows was for a neurochemical, right? So if this is serotonin, I just start tweaking your serotonin downwards, you're going to get more and more depressed. But if I start tweaking it the other way, I'm going to make you happier, right? If I lower your dopamine levels, then you'll have much less in terms of motivation. But if I start boosting your dopamine, it's because you're going to get addicted to this thing that I want you to do. So I started seeing the mind and the body almost as a neurochemical machine that I can now manipulate through motion, through movement, through breathing. So that's, to me, was where it became really, really fascinating. Because,
amazing.
Yeah, because emotions, feelings, all those things, we don't feel like we have control over them, but we really do. Like, I really, really believe we do, but you have to know how to do it. You have to know how to take control of it. And that's where this formula kind of came from, was this wanting to take control of those things.
That's amazing. And so what I've been learning about flow state is, and one thing that is very common with these experiences is the variable of challenge.
Yeah.
Or, so can we talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because I think that's an important aspect of taking control of the emotions is kind of, as you said earlier, activating the stress response of the body,
Yes.
and applying a little bit of stress and challenge as a way to then take control of that process.
Yeah. So in his book, Rise of Superman, there's this really cool chapter where they talk specifically about that. So it's struggle is the word that they mostly use. So without struggle, there's no need for flow. Okay, so I think of it as the edge. Okay, when you train really, really hard and you push yourself at these high intensity levels, there's this edge where if you go too far past that edge, you're in trouble. Mm-hmm. You know, you might end up being nauseous or not feeling well, getting dizzy. But if you don't reach that edge, you don't really get that rush. You don't get that really awesome feeling that you can get from a high intensity workout. And so what he talks about in his book is he talks about you have to go 4% past your edge to create flow state.
Threshold.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right? Because if it's less than 4%, it's not challenging enough. Right? So let's take skiing. We're in Tremblant. Let's talk skiing. If I'm a skier and I'm this really amazing expert skier and I go down a super easy trail, I'm not going to trigger flow. Why? There's no need for it. I need to find that challenge. I need to find that cliff. I need to find that run that forces me to stay super focused, right? But even me, I have a limit to my skill level. And if I go beyond that, I might crash because I've never pushed myself this hard before. So you need to find that kind of zone where, you know, like the kind of flow zone.
Where you're activating the fear response, or not so much.
It has to be stressful enough that you
where it's not taking you
response.
over, but it's kind of activated.
Exactly. And so what I found was that through high intensity movement, I can create that trigger, but that doesn't guarantee flow. It just guarantees that I'm starting the process that could lead to
Is it a necessary component?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Well, for the formula that we've kind of developed, which is using physical triggers.
High intensity flow.
Yeah, using physical triggers. Because you can also have, you know, mental triggers. Like a really difficult math problem, for example, could trigger flow if you're super into it. Yeah. So there's other ways of triggering it. And I don't ever want to take ownership of flow state. Like that's something that's been around for as long as humans have been around, right? But our way of doing it is really is using this high intensity movement. And even intensity, it all depends on the person. Right? So if I'm doing martial arts training, I got to push pretty hard because this is what I'm good at. But someone who's never hit a punching bag before, it might take like 30 seconds and they're there, right? Because their body's just not able to deal with it, right? But it's the breathing afterwards that almost guarantees it. Because if you create that heightened state through the movement, and then the breathing activates these other processes that kind of enhance what you were doing with the movement, that's when, for me, the flow state is, for me anyway, it feels like it's almost a guarantee at this point.
Okay.
But then it's up to me to use it. Like if you just sit around watching TV after, it's like, all right, well, that was a waste. So I usually try to, you know, let's say I know I'm going to write something, or if I want to sit at my computer design something, I'll usually do my workout, then my breathing, trigger flow, and then go to work.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's what's very interesting about what you've been working on, a lot of the research you've been doing, and now this program that you're putting together and the formula. I love when you use that word because it makes a lot of sense, because these experiences is something that we go for a jog, we feel flow, or it's something that just comes, as you say, it just kind of shows up. But being able to harness it and take it into different aspects of our life is something that
and I think
you're very passionate about.
You know, when I started, it was mostly with athletes and talking to athletes. And when I would talk about flow state, they didn't know what it was. But I said, how about being in the zone? They're like, oh, yeah, I know what that is. The zone is something a lot of people talk about, especially in sports. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's a lot of athletes that I think some people just have maybe it's a genetic thing, or they have some sort of predisposition to being able to trigger it. If you look at the greats, the greatest athletes of all time all had access to flow. they had an easier access to flow. And that can be based on many, many factors. I think for a lot of them, it was a work ethic. You know, they put in the work, therefore their potential was much higher. Because that's the thing about flow state. And that's, you know, if I've never skied in my life, no matter how much flow I get you into, you're not going to make it down that hill because you don't have the skill. You don't have the talent for it. Flow is about maximizing your potential, but that potential is built through work. You know, and that's something that some people don't get sometimes is like, sorry, this isn't a shortcut. You don't get to skip the work. But what flow does, it guarantees that the best version of yourself comes out.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So if I'm, you know, a really good example is, I think the first athlete who really did the full 6-week program and then proved it in competition was a friend of mine, Catherine Medeiros, who's she was training to try out for the Canadian bobsleigh team. Okay, so this was a beast of a woman. Like, this girl is just a phenomenal athlete. And she had the trials were coming in roughly 6 to 8 weeks. She had heard about my program through her boyfriend, who's one of my partners. And she's like, I want to do it. I want to try it. So I coached her through it. She did the full 6-week process, got to the trials, and killed it. Wow. Absolutely killed it. Made it onto the team. She's now touring Europe, competing with the Canadian bobsleigh team. And I did an interview with her, and we were talking about that. And she's like, it was amazing to see on the day of the trials, people that she had been training with for months, and to watch a lot of them just crumble.
Seize up.
Yeah, to just not, because they get one chance, one day, one moment. And it's just like, it's epic, right? It's like, this is it. And there's people who like traveled from across Canada to be there, and they left their families behind, and there's all this pressure
so much
on
emotional
them. Yeah, there's so much emotional attachment. It's like, hey, if I don't perform today, I'm done. I'm not going to make it. And these were beasts of athletes. Like, all of them are just amazing athletes. And she's like, I closed my eyes and I did my breathing and I did exactly what you had taught me. And she finished first in the country.
So she had the skills. She did the preparation.
Yeah, the work was there.
The work was there.
And I think she mentioned, you know, in the past having a problem with that, of knowing that she was capable but not performing on game day. And I think that's the thing.
Which is the most important. Yeah. Which is the most important.
Absolutely, 100%. And it's something I saw in the fight game over and over and over again. These guys that were beasts in the gym who would, you know, kick everybody's ass. But then, you know, with the stage, the lights, the people, the pressure, and not performing at your best. And it sucks. It really sucks, because especially in those types of sports where you get that one chance, you know, where if you don't perform, that could be it for you. And that's a lot of pressure to put on yourself. Yeah.
And it's easy. It could be easy to underestimate.
But that pressure is also what triggers flow, though, right?
Yeah.
So that's the thing, right? Is there's no pressure, then you won't trigger your flow. Like, if it's too easy, you're not going to get it. So that's where it's a really delicate kind of line, is you want to create that pressure. And it's not about avoiding it. It's about using it, harnessing it, learning how to harness it.
So instead of it taking you over completely, and if you're crumbling during a performance, and maybe not even so much on game day, but just in everyday life, right? We get overtaken by emotion. We're in conversations with people and we're kind of like somewhere else because we're thinking, we're distracted, we're trying to get work done, we're not fully there.
I think mindfulness is probably a good word for that.
Mindfulness, but that's kind of in flow state. It's kind of, it's a little bit more, emotions are less of a factor.
Yeah. So there's this third part of the formula that I haven't talked about yet, which is music. Okay. So music is I think it's like our secret weapon, which is our trigger. It's our flow trigger. So for example, we use this formula where we use this high intensity movement, combine that with our breathing protocol, trigger flow. Now, what if you are a businessman and you're going in for this really important sales meeting? Do you have time to go do a high intensity workout, meditate for 20 minutes, and then go to your meeting? Probably not. So what do? How do you get into flow state in that moment when you need it, but you don't have time to do that, you know, that part of the formula? So what we did, and this is something that happened to me by accident, is I would do these workouts and I would do my meditation and then I was doing all this amazing work, but I kept thinking, okay, but what happens if I don't have time to do all that? But every time I would work out, I always listened to the same music, right? And then one day I was sitting and I was writing. I was just writing on my computer and I was listening to those same tracks. And there were 3 tracks in this 1-hour mix in particular that I really connected with. And that I remember during workouts that would make me push even harder, right? And I remember rereading what I wrote afterwards and having these 3 particular sections that they were better than all the rest. And I suddenly connected that those 3 sections were written during those 3 musical tracks. So I realized that music had triggered a response and had made me perform at a better level. Mm-hmm. So I started thinking about like classical conditioning, for example. Yep. So what if every time I put myself into flow state, I listened to the exact same musical track? And then over time, I create an association between the musical track and flow state. So that if then I just apply the breathing with the music, can I trigger flow? Can I bypass the high intensity movement
is there for you?
It's already there. The connection's been created. So I'm tricking my mind into triggering flow
Plasticity?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I haven't gone deep enough into that part of neurochemistry or neurobiology.
But the connection was there,
Yeah, absolutely. And so I started doing that. But I also did a lot of research on the type of music. Because again, there's this thing called hypofrontality, right? Mm-hmm. Which is the deactivation of the prefrontal cortex. Mm-hmm. Prefrontal cortex being where language is from, being consciousness is from. So if I'm listening to a song with words, with lyrics, while I'm listening to the lyrics, which means I'm engaged, my conscious mind is working, and I don't want that in flow. I want it to be disengaged, right? So I started looking at instrumental style of music. And then I also noticed that some music, if there's too much variation in the music, I'm engaged in the music. I'm focusing too much on the music, which is keeping my conscious mind engaged. So then I started looking at very, very simple tribal style music. Why? Because a big part of what I studied in Costa Rica is I really got into shamans. And I really started reading about shamanic practices and how shamans use different methods to create what they call alternative states of consciousness, right? And one of those things, like, of course, there's psychedelics and ayahuasca and all of these different plant medicines that a lot of shamans use. But they also had something called exhaustive dance. So when you have these, these videos or these images of shamans dancing around a fire, right, with the drums drumming, ba, 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 ba. But we don't know, shamans would do that for 3-4 hours, to a point where they would get into a trance because of the physical exhaustion combined with the music, combined with the chanting, combined with everything else. And I'm like, they were triggering flow.
Yeah.
Like flow's been around since then. Like there's no flow. Like we give these names and we create all of this.
And the science
this
helps
terminology. Us but they knew about that thousands of years ago, right? And they've been using it for thousands of years. So right away I thought, tribal drums. It just makes sense. And I feel like percussions and drums, there's a very rhythmical, it almost fits with our heartbeat. Like there's something that just makes sense to me when I listen to drums like that. And it's just really simple tribal beat that you're not going to like go listen to like to party, but
it's like rhythmic stimuli.
Yeah. So I chose this one amazing track that I really connected with. And every single time I would go into flow, I would listen to it and listen to it and listen to it. And it took about, after even a few weeks, I started to feel it. But I'd say after a good month, I remember I had this really important presentation on flow state, actually. And right before going in, I closed my eyes and I listened to 1 minute, just 1 minute of the drums with my breathing. And I walked in and I killed it.
Wow.
And I felt so relaxed awesome, and I felt so in control. And then after that, any single time I have, like even before, right before I came in the car, 1 minute of my drums and I come in and it's like a secret weapon. It wears off. So you have to keep reinforcing that trigger through the, the movement protocol and the breathing protocol so that it's always as powerful as possible.
You can keep it active.
But it's that tool. It's that tool that you now have on your phone or whatever that you can use anytime you want. It's there.
And the fact that it does last, right? You can carry it throughout your day.
Yeah.
Is an amazing thing. Yeah. And that's amazing.
Like it's not as like I won't compare it to like if I do a really high intensity movement session and then I do my breathing, the physical sensation of flow is way more intense. So this 1 minute of breathing with the drums won't get me necessarily to that state, but it definitely gets me into a much more focused, much more calm state that allows me to perform. And especially for someone who has any type of stress or anxiety issues, any type of performance issues, it's just this really, really cool way of giving yourself a better chance at performing. And you can do it without the music, like there's moments where I don't have my music available and I'm able to close my eyes and breathe. And it's almost like I hear the drums in my mind.
Yeah, but you've been able to establish that as kind of a factor that has, for sure, there's an influence
100%,
there on the components.
Yeah.
So I want to go just deeper into kind of the conscious aspect of it, and we'll talk about the warrior flow.
Yeah.
Because that's a very important aspect of it.
Yeah.
That's where there's something more going on there. But up until this point, can you just briefly recap the variable, like what are the variables involved here? We just touched on music, challenge, because when you go for a jog, you feel really good after, you get that endorphin rush, but there's something more to that. So what is the formula up until this point?
So my idea was that, okay, I do this amazing workout, and I think this is for a lot of people. I think that there's a segregation that we create as human beings as we separate all these parts of our lives, right? What we do at work is separate from what we do in our private life, which is separate from what we do in the gym, which is, like we create these kind of these sections of our lives. And I felt like we need to start connecting those things together. So great, I feel amazing after a workout, but then I go into my regular day-to-day job and I don't feel so amazing. And I'm just like, oh, I can't wait to get to the gym so I can feel amazing again. But why can't I use that feeling that I'm creating in the gym in other aspects of my life, right? So that's where this idea of creating that flow trigger was born. So why don't I find a way to harness that energy, that power that I'm creating in the gym with those workouts, with those movement sessions, so that I can then use it anywhere I want, right? So our formula is move, breathe, music, flow, right? And that's what we encourage. And the harder you push in the gym, well, the more of an effect it's going to have when you're outside of the gym. So if you're killing it in the gym, and I say the gym is movement, right? This could be running in the mountain. It could be a cyclist. It could be movement,
exertion, some
sort of stress, some sort of, and I also, and this again, it's all about preference, but I think some movements are more powerful than others. Like you can, like for me, practicing martial arts will be a much stronger trigger than, going for a walk.
Doing for a few,
or doing something that I don't really enjoy.
A couple push-ups.
Yeah, a couple. Yeah, again, it depends on the person.
Absolutely.
But
which is exciting, right? That means whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think martial arts also activates this very primal kind of part of us that, I really firmly believe that humans are violent creatures. And I think that we all have violence. We all have aggression. We all have fear. We all have these things. And martial arts allows you to really tap into that. When I'm hitting a punching bag, there's nothing like it. Like I go so deep into flow in those moments.
There's that weird, mysterious calm that is associated with that, right?
Yeah. And I think if you look at, it's funny in martial arts, you see that a lot where in the beginning, there's this sense of, whoa, I can't believe I'm doing this. This is awesome. And you almost, it kind of builds up your ego in a sense. But then it's also extremely humbling because at some point you run into someone who knows so much more than you do and who's got way more experience. And when that happens often enough, sorry, at some point it just becomes more and more humbling. And especially when you match that with meditation, I call it like an ego squasher. Like your ego just gets not smaller and smaller, but just less and less important. And it also builds a respect for violence. It builds a respect for movement, and you realize just how powerful the human body is and what it's capable of. So I think different styles of movement. I've also done quite a bit of like parkour, and I've done different styles of martial arts. I love trail running, for example. So that's a good comparison, right? So someone who runs a marathon, for example, for me, it's like the most boring thing in the world. I hate running on a street where there's nothing going on. It's super boring. It's just a straight line compared to going to run, on a mountain trail where I'm jumping over rocks and I'm climbing trees and there's all this.
You're aware of your surroundings. Some more senses are involved.
Yeah, absolutely, right. And that's a big part of flow. Actually, is central
input.
Central input, central stimulation,
mapping the environment.
Yeah, exactly. And part of what we want to do with this Warrior Flow program is create experiences for people, not workouts, experiences. So, we're really at the beginning stage, but for now, yes, the movement's important, the music's important, the breathing's important. But what if I also engage you visually? So what if I create a space that's visually engaging? We could be in a white room with nothing going on, or we could be in this wicked room with candles and torches and whatever. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I want to create experiences for people that where we're hitting you on all these different...
the primal level, absolutely. The sensory level.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. And even for the music, like eventually we'd like to look into doing stuff with live drums rather than using drums through a sound system, just to see how much further can we push
real actual vibrations
experience.
that penetrate.
Yeah, absolutely. And I believe in human connection. I believe in the energy that gets exchanged among the people within that space, right? So Warrior Flow was born from that, from this idea of creating almost tribal experiences for people to help them tap into flow state. Wow. And to help them kind of then be able to go out on their own and apply this formula for themselves, but having experienced it so you know what's going on. So in the beginning, we created this 6-week program called Warrior Flow. The idea being that I would teach you how to integrate a breathing protocol into your existing movement practice, into your existing day-to-day life, right? And it went well for some people and less well for others. And what I realized is the people who it went well for were people who were already very well structured in their movement practice, such as a professional athlete or even an amateur athlete who takes their sport very, very seriously. So for them, movement's already an integral part of their lives. So they just had to integrate the breathing protocol and it made sense. And they felt it and it went very well. But what if you don't really have a movement practice? I mean, maybe you go to the gym 3 times a week, but you're not an athlete. You're not really into it. You do it to stay healthy and to feel good, but you don't necessarily know what it is you're trying to do. So if you've never felt that flow state, if you've never felt the intensity of what we create in our experiences, it's hard for you to do it on your own. So what we really want to do is create these experiences for people, have them try it out, so that they can then go out and say, oh, okay, now I know where I'm going. Now I know what it's supposed to feel like. Great. So they know how hard they have to push. Yeah. They know how the breathing is applied. They know how it feels once you do that in the right way. A woman that I've been working with for a couple months now, just this really, really nice person, and she's a personal trainer and really interested in what we're doing. And she did the 6-week program on her own and didn't really feel it. And then she finally came to do a workout with us, my partner and I, and right after she's like, oh, now I get it. Now I get it. And now we meet once a week, and I walk her through that experience once a week. And she sent me the most amazing message about how for the first time in her life, she felt connected to the universe. Wow. And I'm like, whoa, that's intense. And that's, you know, as a testimonial, I don't think it gets any better than that. Absolutely. Right? It's not like, oh, I feel great. No, she's connected to the universe. Like, all right, good. You know, like, I think, you know, but again, and I told her that, but then it doesn't happen every time.
No, but
she felt it. She's like, okay, at least now she has belief. Yeah. She believes it's possible now.
Because even if you do experience it on your own, it can be almost overwhelming and a little bit, you're not sure what's going on. So I think it's amazing that you're providing the environment for people to kind of get a sense of what it is. And that's something that they know you're activating something for people that they can carry into their lives. You're giving them a tool that we all have, but creating the environment, an actual program, a formula. And what I find fascinating about your program as well is that it's adaptable to different where people are at in their lives, where people are at, what they come in kind of struggling with.
For example, one person I approached was a woman who worked for the Arthritis Society. So this was a young woman who was very, very active, was actually looking to become a personal trainer, did a lot of fundraising through triathlon training, and developed this rare form of arthritis after she gave birth to her son. And I approached her because struggle, right? Struggle triggers flow. So yeah, an athlete struggles through the sport that they practice, the training that they do. But someone with arthritis or some sort of physical disability, they struggle every day. Mm-hmm. They struggle to get out of bed. They struggle to go up a flight of stairs. And I'm like, I wonder what it could do for someone like that, who obviously can't kill it in the gym, but who can definitely apply the breathing protocol. And so I sent her this really nice message, and she got back to me immediately and said, yes, I need to try this. And so she tried it out for 6 weeks and had really amazing results. And what she felt was that, you know, I'm not going to quit my meds tomorrow. Yeah. I'm not going to do, but it's an alternative. Because a lot of people with those types of disabilities, all they have to rely upon is pain medication. Because there's no cure. There's nothing that, you know, it's not like you have a cold, eventually it goes away. No, like arthritis is, you're pretty much set with it for life. And so I've been to a lot of events with the Arthritis Society, and I've seen what goes on, and we're not experts, and we're really just starting off in that whole field. But I do feel that if we can give people the tools to at least have an alternative to medication, at least figure out that, what's that medication doing? It's altering your neurochemistry. What's our formula doing? Altering your neurochemistry. So how can we make them work together?
Amazing.
How can we help you maybe take less medication? Because for a lot of those people, the side effects are almost as bad as the disease itself.
And what they're not treating is the mind. Because
they're not treating the mind. Or same thing, someone with anxiety problems. Like, that's where I started. For me, it was I had this massive panic attack.
Okay.
And I realized, like, okay, I need to do something about this. And that's when I applied this formula. And again, what's anxiety? A neurochemical issue. What's stress? A neurochemical issue. Everything comes down to your neurochemistry. So if you can find a way to create a more positive neurochemical state, you're going to help yourself deal with those things. Mm-hmm. You have depression, it's because your serotonin levels are probably too low. So yes, you could take medication to get those back up, but then what? You take that medication for the rest of your life? You rely on those pills to be happy?
Or you're getting too much of it and it's not
able to and then you have to balance it and all that. Yeah. Or what if you
activate your system, your body will know how much
you... Absolutely. And I'm not saying this replaces meds in all situations. I definitely think these medications are overprescribed. I think that, I go see a doctor. Hey, doc, I'm stressed. Here you go. It's that simple. Like, the amount of, especially women that I've met who are on some sort of medication for either stress or anxiety or depression is overwhelming. I'm amazed. I'm like, you? And these are people that seem very well adjusted. They even work out. And no, they just had a bad day. And next thing you know, they're on happy pills. And I was like, this is ridiculous. They're even prescribing it to kids now. That's kids insane. Having trouble with homework. Oh, you need some pills to help you do that. It's freaking me out.
It is freaking us out because it's avoiding the most important aspect of not only flow state, but progress and growth as a human being is avoiding challenge.
100%.
Taking it out of the equation instead of what you're working on is amazing to being able to harness that and activate that primal part of us and
that's where warrior
seeks it out from. Almost warrior. So
that's where warrior flow comes from. And it's funny because when I came up with the name warrior flow, a few people, including my wife, said it was too aggressive a word. She's like, oh, I don't know, it's going to give people the wrong impression. They're going to think about violence and all this stuff. I was like, no, not if I define what a warrior means to us, right? So a warrior, like I said, there's a book that I read called The Peaceful Warrior. So Peaceful Warrior by Dan Millman was the first book I ever read that got me onto this journey.
Great, we'll link that up.
Incredible book that I read once a year. I go back to it once a year. And it's just a story. It's this dude telling his story about this old guy that he meets who becomes his mentor and who walks him through life. And there's just so many really amazing lessons in that book. But one of the lessons is what is a peaceful warrior? Because think of it, peace and warrior, those are words that should not be connected, right? Warrior is violent, it's someone who kills people or whatever, and peace is like something else, right? But a peaceful warrior is someone who is willing to fight for what they believe in, who's willing to be aggressive towards achieving their goals, but who does it in a way that creates a peaceful environment. Which means that if I want to get to from point A to point B, I can get there as aggressively as possible. But I do it in a way that doesn't harm others, that doesn't harm myself, and that doesn't harm the environment that's around me. And I love that concept. This idea of being aggressive in life, but doing it in a way that I'm very aware of my environment. I'm very aware of what I'm putting out in the world. So Warrior Flow is born from that concept of wanting to create, and Flō Tribe, which is the name of our company, of our community. Yeah. The Flō Tribe is a tribe of warriors dedicated to creating positive change in the world. Because it's kind of like my secret mission, which maybe if I say it now it won't be so secret, but I just feel like no matter what you do, if you're an athlete, if you're a business professional, if you're whatever, once you tap into flow, once you realize how powerful it is, we hope that you'll recognize the power that you now have to create change in the world.
Unreal, yeah.
Yeah, the first thing is you help yourself.
Wow.
If you're not in a good place, it's very difficult for you to help others. So first thing is take care of yourself. Get yourself to that place where you feel really good and you feel confident and peaceful all at the same time. But then I hope that you'll recognize your opportunity that you have to pass it on, to make a difference in people's lives. Really interesting story. So part of the program, especially in the beginning, I encourage people to do a journaling exercise at the end of each day. Okay. So at the end of each day, I would ask them to answer 3 questions. So how did you challenge or improve your physical self today? Because challenge is a big part of flow, so it's important that you push yourself, right? The second question, how did you improve or challenge your mind today? Did you make an effort to learn? Did you make an effort to read a book, watch a documentary, have a conversation with someone and pick up something new that helps you to grow? But then the third one was, how did you challenge or improve your spirit today? And by spirit, I mean the connection with others, the connection with the world, realizing that you are part of something bigger than yourself. No matter what your beliefs are, there's nothing to do with religion, has nothing to do with any type of spiritual belief. It's more to say, hey, you're not all alone in the world. There's people around you. There's animals around you. There's a world around you that you have to respect. And it was a way of challenging people to go out in the world and do good things. And there's one girl who did the program for 3 days, and then she wrote me this message and said, it's funny because I've never considered myself to be a selfish person, but in the first 2 days of doing your program, I realized that I very rarely think of others, and I had nothing to write for how did I challenge my spirit today.
Wow.
So that morning, she woke up and said, tonight I will have something to write. So she goes to the coffee shop, orders her coffee like she does every morning, but rather than just pay and walk away, she looks up and says, hey, how are you today? And smiles at the person who gave her the coffee. And that person smiled back and said, I'm really good, thanks. And she walked away and she's like, I felt amazing.
Wow.
That tiny little thing, that tiny little gesture triggered an entire day of thinking of other ways that she could be nicer to people, of other ways of reaching out to people.
Unbelievable.
She's like, I contacted an old friend of mine who I hadn't seen in months, who was going through a hard time, and I offered, hey, I'm here to listen if you need it.
That's great.
And I just thought, that's amazing. Like, that's one person doing one nice thing. Now, what if we get 20 people, 100 people, 1,000 people thinking that way, of doing these tiny little gestures throughout the world, right?
Throughout the world, not change.
Yeah.
It's not the heavy burden of having to make a huge change in the world. Start with your environment. Start with yourself, and that's kind of the warrior mentality. You don't have to tear everything down. You have to become a better person so that you can be aggressive with yourself first and take that into your environment.
100%.
I love that.
And another really thing that cemented the warrior name for me was I did a talk. I presented the project at this gala for the Arthritis Society, and they asked me if I would present my project and all that. And I was like, yeah, for sure, absolutely. But I was the last speaker to go up. And among those speakers were kids that were suffering from juvenile arthritis. And they went up and talked about their experiences with living with juvenile arthritis, about the pain that they go through, their day-to-day lives. And one after the other, just these amazing kids and even grown-ups who were smiling and happy and yet spent their days in pain and spent their days challenged by this horrible situation that they were in. And I got up there and I started talking and I said, look, I just have to say something. You know, I wasn't sure about this name that we've chosen, Warrior Flō. But after listening to these people speak today, I know that this room is full of warriors.
Nice. And
the roar that I got from these people who just yelled like they owned it, right?
Amazing,
they're like, yes, we're warriors. And wow, I was like, that's it. I am never changing that name no matter what anybody says. It's a powerful word, and I think that
it means something to us as well, even if we don't register it right away.
Yeah,
I think it registers
and there's a tribal feel
yeah.
to it, you know, like for me it's like warrior now compared to thousands of years ago was like people who would go out and they had to defend their lives and their villages and the people that they love.
With integrity.
You know, with integrity, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, and there's obviously like a savageness and there's a violence to it, and I'm not necessarily encouraging people to be violent in any way, but it's a word. And I think we have to be careful sometimes. Words are what we decide they want to be.
Absolutely. But I think, and I love when you mentioned that violence is a part of our condition. That might be hard for some people to process and understand, but to come to terms with that, to come to terms with the nature of maybe savage is a little extreme, but aggressive or kind of the more brutal aspect of nature in general is an exciting thing, because then it's not so it doesn't throw us off so much when things get a little bit challenging.
Yeah, and I think martial arts for me was an opening into this idea that find an outlet for your violence and you will never commit it. Right? Like if you look at anyone who commits acts of violence on a regular basis, you look at domestic abuse, you look at people who hurt their children, you look at anybody who commits acts of violence, chances are they don't have an outlet for it, and that becomes their outlet. You know, other people will turn to alcohol, other people will turn to drugs, other people will become depressed. I think it can all be kind of filtered down to this very negative energy that just makes us feel bad, and it makes us feel angry, it makes us feel frustrated, stressed, anxious. I think all of those emotions, all of those feelings come from one root negative source. And when you create an outlet, a positive outlet, such as martial arts, you release it. You get rid of it. So it's gone. You know, when I leave the gym, you could walk up and smack me in the face and I'd say thank you, I think. Like, I just feel that peaceful,
Yeah.
right? And it's not because I want people... No, but...
Or you'd kick their ass, but...
But that's another... and to be honest, there's a piece that comes with knowing that, hey, you build a relationship with violence. You know, when I feel my elbow smash a punching bag, like, ooh, that would hurt.
Yeah.
So there's a sense of confidence, absolutely, that comes from that. And we teach these self-defense workshops in a way of giving people the tools. It's like, look, you're not going to kick everybody's ass on the street. There's no point. I don't need to. And I don't feel a need to do that. I'm like, look, you are obviously angry. You have some issues, like, and this is how you deal with it. But I don't want to fight you. Like, I have nothing to prove. At some point, you just don't have anything to prove.
Even just going to the gym and hitting the punching bag is something that you're doing. You have the intention of, which gives you the confidence of not getting so thrown off by stuff that happens to you outside of the gym.
Absolutely.
Because you're just like, I could kick your ass right now, but I'm not going to. I'm choosing to be patient. And that's kind of the martial arts culture, right?
Yeah.
That's a lot what I've been, and instead of just sitting still. And so the warrior flow, the warrior mentality is actually peaceful. It can be a calm thing.
Absolutely.
Because I'm choosing to be calm.
Yeah.
I'm the warrior in this situation. Yeah. I'm not getting thrown off by turbulence.
And you turn it on and off. You know, and I think you take control. Like, I'm probably one of the most peaceful people you'll ever meet.
Yeah.
But if you watch me train, it's a different story. Yeah. Because I choose to turn it on. You know, I choose to destroy that punching bag. Like, when I go hard and I go into deep flow and nothing around me exists, but there's just me in that bag. And it's not about being angry. It's about being intense, about aggression, about letting it out. Because it's fun, because it's awesome. Like, you feel it and you own it, and it's animalistic, it's primal, you know? And I feel like the more often you can go to that place, the less often you will need more. And there's less,
because it's less necessary,
and it's less easy to trigger. Like, people do things and I don't get pissed because it's not there anymore.
That's a good point, because when anger comes up, it's something or aggression comes into us. Like, it might be hard for us to control. Like, I want to hit that guy, or that person cut me off, screw him. We don't know how to manage these things. So practicing aggression might be
100%.
That makes a lot of sense,
breathing,
right?
The combination of aggression and breathing is where the best combination
practicing the aggression,
because I get angry. It's not that you don't get angry.
No.
You know, anger, someone I was just listening to was comparing the differences between emotions and feelings, right? And where
friction.
Yeah. And I think, like, anger is not something you can necessarily control, but what happens after you get angry is right. So anger is a very raw emotion. It's something that's triggered by a stimulus. You know, something that gets me really upset happens, well, I'm going to get angry. But now if I stay angry and if I stay frustrated for a long period of time, that's on me. That first initial anger, I had no control over.
Yeah.
But what happens after that?
Did I get drawn into it? Now I'm overtaken by it? Yeah.
That's on me. And how I act on that, that's on me. Yeah. And that's where learning to take control of that is extremely important. Turn anger into energy, and energy into something positive.
Amazing.
Right? Because you can channel, it's all energy, right? If I'm angry, I can use that anger as fuel. It can fuel positive action. So if someone does something that really pisses me off, but I know that I can do something about rectifying that situation, well, I'm like, all right, dude, you just pissed me off, but I'm going to turn around and do something positive with that energy. If that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's amazing. And I think a lot of people need to hear that. That's a good way to look at things. It's a good way to look at things is I do have a choice.
Yeah. You're not a victim. We're not victims of our circumstances. Absolutely not.
But the thing too is that it's easy to get drawn into negativity and anger. It's the easy thing to do. What's hard is actually developing that other choice. And that's what you're helping people do. I think it's amazing.
But I think, and one thing about flow also is that there's a long-term relationship with flow state. And that's something I've discovered recently. Because the more often you trigger it, the easier it becomes triggered. And the more powerful it becomes over time, right? It actually grows. And something that happened to me about maybe 3 weeks ago. So I was driving and I was like in a kind of snowstorm and some guy just pulled up right in front of me. He slipped through a stop sign. I was about to hit him. And suddenly I just calmly saw myself just swerving to the left, swerving back to the right. Oh, there's another car. Next thing you knew, I was almost like parallel parked on the side of the road. I'm like, what just happened?
Yeah.
Like everything slowed down. Like I went into this total flow state, totally dealt with that situation.
Yeah.
But more importantly was after it happened, normally I would have been a wreck. My heart rate would have been super elevated. Like, oh my God, I was almost in an accident. I was super chill. I got out of the car, checked if the guy was okay. He's like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, oh, we're good, dude.
Yeah.
All good. And then I got back in my car and I was driving away. I was like, what just happened?
Yeah.
And I'm convinced
people would have been outside of their car freaking out.
Yeah,
right?
and I'm convinced that after months and months and months of triggering flow state, the challenge was there, triggered flow. I knew exactly what to do, and that was it. And I was like, holy shit. Like that, to me, was way more of a win or of a moment than purposely doing something with flow. Because that was a moment that was completely out of my control, but that the best possible outcome came out of it. Right? So if you're working on flow to be better at hockey or better at skiing or better at anything else, but then you avoid a car accident that could potentially harm you, well, that's way more important.
And that
was just a side effect, you know?
Exactly, and it wasn't even just a car accident. It was a moment that took place in your life, and you knew exactly how to deal with it.
Yeah.
You didn't expect it. You didn't get overtaken by the emotion.
Yeah.
Although the challenge of the situation is what activated your natural.
Yeah. The fact that I got out of it was one thing, but it was how I felt afterwards. I felt so calm. I was
not agitated, not angry.
Like usually I would be like heart rate elevated and like kind of freaking out,
or like this is a bad day now or something.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Like totally chill.
That's amazing. Cool.
It really was. It was really awesome.
That's amazing, man. So yeah, thanks so much. That's such a I'm really glad that you took the time to come share that with us. I think it's amazing what you guys are working on. So what's next for Flō Tribe, and where can we find you, and where can we learn? I know we covered a lot of topics today. Yeah. Where can we learn a little bit more about, or where can we follow you guys? And
so flowtribe.com. We're really, like I said, we're just starting off, so there's a lot of work we still have to do to get known. But hey, this is part of it, right?
Awesome.
So flowtribe.com. Check out our website, our Facebook's page as well. Flō Tribe, FLO Tribe. Where we try to post, a lot of the research, a lot of the testimonials, people that have gone through the program, and look out for workshops everywhere. We're doing a workshop in Tremblant, February 4th.
Okay.
We're going to have workshops in Montreal.
You guys are based out of Montreal,
yeah,
right?
We're based out of Montreal right now. And we're kind of hoping to come up to Tremblant more often and hopefully set some stuff up here as well.
Awesome, yeah.
And
the nature.
Yeah, and we also want people from outside of those geographical areas to realize that a lot of what we do is done through internet, through technology. So if someone's looking for coaching, we've done Skype coaching in the past. Awesome. That's gone extremely well.
You're working on some video series.
Yeah, we've got a lot of really cool videos coming up. So there's going to be some really cool stuff.
Great.
Both movement experiences, breathing experiences, interviews with different people, and mostly based around flow state and performance and how you can use it in your day-to-day life.
Because it's a vast topic, right?
It's
and
huge.
Being able
to
identify is just sitting down with you today and it kind of going through the science of it, going through touching a little bit on the ancient philosophies, but these things combined open up such a vast.
It's funny. It's like for me, science brought me to spirit.
Mm-hmm.
It took science for me to finally discover spirit, and then from spirit, I brought it back to science. So it's kind of bridging the gap between those two worlds, which in the end are the same world. They're just two different lenses.
Yeah.
You can look at it from a scientific lens, or you can look at it from a spiritual lens. It's the same world. It's the same reality, the same existence.
We could say the early shamans were the first scientists, so like the first scientists, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or like the early Aristotle, the early philosophers were the people looking at the components of things.
Look at alchemy, right? So the idea of alchemy was the precursor to science as we know it, but these guys were considered to be magicians because they were doing things that could not be explained. But now we can explain it because we have the tools that allow us to see it.
Yeah.
But at the time, like this idea of molecules and atoms and that, you couldn't see any of that. Yeah. So
it's still magic.
Absolutely.
A new discovery is just something.
Yeah.
There's never a stable conclusion. There's always something more to be discovered.
Yeah, and I know that as far as the brain is concerned, we're just touching a little tiny bit of what we know, and that's to me extremely exciting because I think we're gonna continue to evolve and continue to break down some barriers and figure things out and make things easier for people.
Fantastic.
Just the fact like you don't need. Hopefully you don't need medication all the time. You don't need to subscribe to these modern, fast ways of dealing with problems. I think there's more natural, way more healthy ways to do that. And that's my goal, is to,
or maybe not always dealing with problems, and maybe experiencing them. Maybe,
and just, and altering your brain chemistry to be in a more positive state more often.
Great.
If anything else, that's it, man. The more often you feel positive, well, guess what? You're going to go out in the world and you'll be nice to people.
Good. Or you'll feel better.
Or you'll feel better. You'll wake up in the morning and, hey, life's not so bad, right?
Good.
Yeah.
A good start for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I'm very excited to just to follow up and kind of see where you guys go with this, because just the fact that you've opened this up for yourself is such an amazing topic. It's such an amazing, I'm just very excited. So obviously we'll follow. There's a lot more that we can be talking about, and
for sure.
The next time you come back, I just really look forward to keeping in touch. So thanks a lot for doing this, Patrick.
Yeah, it was an honor, man.
Yeah.